Welcome to a special webinar. So this is different than our normal 2 or 3 times a month training webinars. This is to go through a lot of Carlson software, more as a demo and presentation and more salesy, if you will, presentation for Carlson software. And I apologize for being tardy on this. I try not to do that. Carlson seems to be working right today, but I was having trouble and am having trouble with PowerPoint, so I may have to get out of my slideshow here and do it another way. But let's just kind of see how that works. I am recording this, so I will be posting this publicly, so we're not off to the greatest start, but yeah, that's what I thought. So it's not advancing, so I'm going to have to kind of go into it through here. So just as a quick mention, so one thing that I do a lot of sales, but I also do a lot of training. And the training side of it, I've found over the last few years, I have a lot of trouble getting to everybody that needs the training. And I've put a few things in my rearview mirror here in 2016. So my goal is in 2017 to focus more on training and doing web content and videos online and webinars and in-person training and online training and all that stuff a lot more. But one of the ways that I have tried to provide training to groups of people to get you what you need is I do these monthly webinars. And it's something that if you purchase, I don't charge anything extra for it if you buy your software from me. So if you buy your software from me, I include it free of charge for 12 months. And I have usually anywhere from 3 to 5 webinars a month. It is training, so it's not sales. I've got guest speakers, so I'll have Mark Long with Carlson, or Jeremy will do traverse adjustment, or Dean Goodman will do ServNet sometimes. Like I said, anywhere from 3 to 5 a month. December, in the past few years, tend to not get a lot of attendance, so I kept it short this year, so you can see the upcoming ones coming up here. I have December 2nd. That setting, setup, configuration, and points. I do that one every single month. It is for people who purchased in the past month. That is, you're getting started. So my goal is that no matter when through the year you purchase, within 30 days you're going to have access to that first webinar. And you will see the topics repeat periodically through the year. Like I said, this one is each month. But these webinars are live. You can ask questions. I answer it. I can unmute your microphone. You can type in a question. When we move from one version to the next, I switch the version, so you're going to see different things, possibly even if the topic name is the same. I'll throw in a few new features or changes to the software. So you can see I did go short on December. We've got the first of the month settings, setup, configuration, and points. Then we have surfaces, grading, and volumes on the 14th. And then I went heavier in January, where we will probably have a lot of new users. Again, that one is repeated on the 4th. Then we have annotation in Carlson software on the 5th. The 11th, survey project from start to finish. 17th, centerlines, profiles, overview of RoadNet, which you're actually going to see a lot of that today, and an introduction to CADNet. So I am getting close to posting February and March topics, and I try to do those ahead of time. So for those of you that do not use Carlson, this is your first introduction. I'm going to go through what I consider the top advantages. So Carlson has a couple of different platforms that they run on top of. So what I'm going to be using today is the desktop for what they say is for CAD. So it comes with IntelliCAD. So it includes a license of IntelliCAD, which is a generic version of AutoCAD. Or if you have a separately purchased version of full AutoCAD, so that could be AutoCAD Map, AutoCAD Map, and Land Desktop, that would count except it's old. And then Civil 3D. All of those include full AutoCAD, so you could install Carlson on top of those. The Civil Suite package, the programs that I'm going to show you today, they fulfill the same tools and functionality that Civil 3D does. So you technically don't know technically about it. You don't need Civil 3D if you're running Carlson on top of it. You really just need an AutoCAD if you want that. A lot of people, I'd say 90% of surveyors that I work with are running just on IntelliCAD. If you just need Carlson Survey, there is an embedded AutoCAD, so it's like Carlson Survey bundled with an AutoCAD LT. So currently, Carlson 2017 runs on top of those full AutoCADs back to 2010. And Carlson has a good relationship with Esri, so if you're running the Carlson products with IntelliCAD, you can get, if you're not a current Esri customer, you can call them and get what they call a starter kit, GIS starter kit, and it's a, I don't even know what the proper name is, they've changed it recently, but it's about a $1,500 piece of Esri ArcMap or something, ArcView, I've got it here, but I think they've changed the name of it since then. The details of that are on my website, so, and there's no guarantee how long they'll do it, so we always put limited time. Carlson's got free tech support, so this is through their main office. This is how they keep in touch with the customers. This does not matter if you're on the current software, if you're working on software that's 10 years old, maybe you haven't even purchased and you're just running a trial. They don't ask your serial number, they don't ask anything when you call in. So you've got access to them. Because they do that, I also do free tech support, so you'll have me as a resource. I always tell people to just hit both of us up. All right. Carlson's got a lot of dynamic features, a lot of dynamic reactions when you update a surface or update a centerline or something like that. However, everything that Carlson creates are basic AutoCAD entities. So you can do things like automatic leaders with your points. You can move contour labels along the contour, have it slide along it. But it's doing it just with polylines as contours, contours as polylines, text labels. It's not unique proprietary objects like Land Desktop and Civil 3D use, where you get proxy errors or you have trouble sending those files or receiving those files from somebody not using your same version of Civil 3D. So it's very friendly regardless of what other programs that you use. It'll convert real easily. Those Carlson files will convert real easily to DGNs or DXF or whatever you need to send it to. Carlson does have an annual maintenance program, so for the desktop software, and that would include the latest release of the Carlson plus whatever IntelliCAD is shipping with it at the time. It's optional, so you don't have to do it. It is, I'll go through some pricing here in a minute, but it's 10% of the retail price each year. And if you skip a year, skip 2 years, 3 years, the price goes up incrementally. But no matter how many years behind you fall, you're never going to pay more than 50% of the retail price to get up to date and current. So, I mean, it's a good thing. Staying on maintenance is, I believe, it's still the cheapest way to stay current if you wish to. So Carlson plays well with others. It's kind of the same as I mentioned a minute ago, is that the entities that they create are just basic AutoCAD entities, so you can send those. There are tons and tons of import from and export to conversion utilities throughout the program. Land XML is going to be your best way to really get it to another program. And I forgot to mention, see, this is not my normal webinar, so I kind of got off my little script and my PowerPoint blowing up on me threw me off. But on your GoToWebinar control panel, over on the right, there's a little hand icon. So at any time during the presentation, if you have a question, go ahead and hit that hand icon. And that will let me know, and I can unmute your microphone. And also, down at the bottom, there is a little questions box, so you can also type a question in there. So I'll keep my eyes on that. All right, so what does it cost? This is Carlson's current retail pricing. They went up a few years ago. I've not heard any insinuation that it's going up anytime soon. It's fairly straightforward. You've got your civil suite, which is pretty much what I'm going to use today. That is a bundle of survey, civil, hydrology, and GIS. So the retail price on that is $37.50. Annual maintenance, if you choose to keep current, this is what you would pay per year for each of these pieces. You can network it, and I can discuss with you individually if it's a good idea or not. There's some advantages sometimes, and other times not so much. Networking any license is, again, going to be 10% of the retail price. So this is retail. My pricing is quite a lot better. In addition, here at the end of the year, Carlson's always has some kind of specials. We never know from year to year what's going to be in that. But for instance, they've got Civil Suite plus a year of maintenance, or through September, for gosh, what is their price? Can't even remember what Carlson's price is for that. But my price is a little bit lower, so I'm selling that for $28.50. So you can see here, normally retail would be $37.50 plus $375, $41.25 compared to the $28.50. So that's through the end of the year. Carlson's got a point cloud program, so you can get that and maintenance for $3,500. Takeoff Suite. So Takeoff Suite has 4 programs: construction, CADNet, trench, and geotech. So that retail is normally $82.50, and it's $4,500 through the end of the year. And then survey or civil plus a CADNet is $18.95. I think I'll go through the CADNet menu. We won't really demonstrate anything, but I'll kind of show you what that'll do. And then here I'll just leave these up for a quick second. If you have any need for GPS network rovers, Carlson's also got the rover and different data collector combinations. The BRX5 is the older model that's going to be phased out at some point, and then the 6 is the newest one. So any questions? All right, very good. Well, let's go ahead, and I want to get into the software. Didn't even have it open. How's that? Okay, so I am running here Carlson 2017 with IntelliCAD, and we've got our menu bar here. And one thing you'll notice is that in all of the Carlson desktop programs, depending on what version, the first 7 or 8 menus are going to be identical. So in every single program, you've got everything under the File, the Edit, View, Draw, Inquiry, Settings, most importantly, Points. Everything under Points you're going to have in every program. So if you're in GIS, you may not think that you get all the points functionality, but you do. If you're in CADNet, you may not think it's necessary, but you get it. 3D solids, if you're running on IntelliCAD, this is new in 2017, you get that one too in every program. Here in Carlson Survey, there's just a few menus that are completely unique. So the Survey menu and the COGO menu can only be found in Survey. And some of these commands are going to be in construction, so there's some overlap. Centerline, area layout, annotate, and surface are in civil as well. However, if you're in civil, and I'll show you this in a second, you've got a surface menu, then you've got a centerlines menu, then you have a profiles menu. And here in Carlson Survey, you don't have the profiles menu, but if you look down here at the bottom, you get a lot of profiling ability. So I will go through some of that today. This is Carlson Survey, but you get a GIS menu. It's not a huge one. You can't do everything that the Carlson GIS program can, but you can do some, like importing shapefiles, exporting shapefiles. If you're coming from CNG software, you've got a CNG menu. You can use this button and it will expand this out to 5 or 6 different CNG specific menus, or you can turn it off altogether. All right, just real quickly, let's go into Civil. You can see the first 7 or 8 menus are the same. 3D data is unique to Civil. You have Surface, then SiteNet is specific to Civil. You've got a Profiles, Sections, Roads, which you're only going to find in Civil. And then our Area Layout, Annotate. Okay. Hydrology, first 7 or 8 are the same. You've got a very stripped down surface menu. Watershed, Structures, Network, and HydroCAD are unique to this program. And then in GIS, you have GIS data and tools and images. So I will tell you that a lot of surveyors, a lot of engineers that come to me and we get into a discussion and they believe that the only thing they need is, I'm a surveyor, all I need is Carlson Survey. Carlson put some pretty cool things in the GIS program above and beyond what's in the GIS menu and survey. So maybe worth your time to check it out. This is where they give you some neat tools to bring in background aerial images, bring in images of soils maps, things like that. And then one other neat little program, this is actually part of Takeoff, is CADNet. So since they're running a special on it, I just wanted to briefly mention this. CADNet is going to be very similar to the raster design program that Autodesk has. It has image manipulation tools. This is where Carlson puts all their digitizing capabilities. So if you want to digitize contours, whether you're doing it from paper plans or if you're inserting an image or a scanned image of a PDF or a PDF of plan sheets that you need to do takeoffs from. You can do some raster to vector conversion. I love this command. You can merge raster files together. So if you have several sheets of plan and profile of waterline extension, force main, miles and miles of roadway, you can piece and patch all those images into one file if you want, using the match lines. Pretty neat. You can import your PDFs. You've also got some BIM capabilities, so you can import IFC files and actual building models from here. So, any questions? Alrighty, so I am going to pop this up here, and let's just go through a real quick importing of points. I'm going to start a new drawing, and I'm going to use a template. It's slightly modified from the template that ships. The only difference is that I've changed the color of one of the layers. So my new drawing name, let's get into this folder that I've created for today, and I'll put today's date, and I'll just call this points because we're going to import points. Got a horizontal scale of 50, which should be fine. All right, so I'm going to create a new Carlson point file. It's a CRD file. It's going to be a new file, and I'm going to populate it by importing points from a text file. So that text file is right here. Very typical point number, northing, easting, elevation description, separated by commas. And we do have coding here for field to finish. So field to finish, if you're coming from the Autodesk world, Carlson's field to finish is like a combination of description keys that will help sort all your points onto different layers, maybe insert symbols, and the automatic line work functions in the old Autodesk Survey and now in Civil 3D. So it's got the coding. First I'm going to draw everything just generically with just draw locate points. Pretty much everything's going to come in on the same layer. We'll look at that, go into field to finish, and you'll see the difference in the processing. All right, so we're going to import the text file. Select that. You get a preview here. And then when I draw this, I'm going to use the generic draw locate. Like I said, we'll come back later and draw with field to finish. And just going to draw everything. So with this draw locate, everything has the same symbol, everything has the same orientation as far as point number being above the symbol, elevation to the right, description below. Also my layers, everything's on the same layer here. So if I freeze points, everything goes away. If I freeze the point elevation layer, all of the elevations go away. Same with description. So functionality, it's not the greatest if you have to try to connect all these. Now I'll switch back to survey so that I can go in and draw a field to finish. And okay, I have to select my code table. And I'll use this one. All right, so just I'm going to just jump into my edit code so you can see here real quickly things like my back of curves. So I can set up 2D and 3D polylines. I can set up special symbols if I want, special line types if I want. Got point groups, different layers for 2D polyline versus 3, different layer for the points, all kinds of stuff. Also, this is going to come up for property things like property corners or fire hydrants that will have a good elevation shot in the field but may not be optimal for surfaces. You can also tag certain points by their description as non-surface. So you'll see that when I go to build a surface from this, anything that I've tagged as a non-surface is going to be ignored. So I'm not going to make any changes. And I'm just going to redraw everything. This time with field to finish, you can see the difference. So I've done a lot of different things here. I have different symbols. My sizing on my symbols may not be perfect. So it is a pine tree symbol. It is property corners have open circles. Ground shots have this elevation kicked out at a 45-degree angle, so it's really easy to see. You can see I've got line work that's been drawn. So we saw in the field to finish codes that we've got 2D and 3D line work, which I can show you that in a second. But my layers is the big difference here. So you can see I've got a ton more layers. All of my points are on layers with V nodes, so it's kind of a modified National CAD standard. I'll turn on a couple of these. So I've even got my layers broken out a bit so that if I choose to, let me turn off just the elevations. If I choose to turn off certain things, I can have my corners labeled, and I can even use those labels, the descriptions from the points, as the point labels if I want. So I can do some other things with my coding up here and make that a little more descriptive. It's not perfect. There's a crepe myrtle tree, things like that. So we can use different coding to size symbols, to bring in canopies. If you have several trees and have a real size canopy, it will merge those together to actually get the combined canopy. So all kinds of things with this. So let me go ahead and turn all my layers back on. And let's look at this in 3D. So before let me wait for a second. Nah, I'll do it now. Let's look at this in 3D. Usually I do this right before I build the surface, and I'm not quite ready to do that yet. But if I look in my 3D viewer, and I'll just select everything here, and I can tip it up on its side, you can see that I've got everything colored by elevation. So my highest elevations are in red, my lowest are in blue. It's a pretty flat site, so if I want to, I can exaggerate my Z values. So you can actually see the 3D polylines that were drawn, my elevated points. And if I zoom out here right now, looking here, all my zeros are being ignored. So I'm going to uncheck that, and now you can see the 0 2D polyline versions of everything. So I'll turn that back on. But before I build a surface, this is one of my checks. I would want to look at it here in 3D, spin it around, make sure I don't have any bad elevations. Now I've clearly got good topo, good break lines here, and some boundary points out here that I'm going to need to ignore for my surface, and I'll show you how that happens. But before I get to the surface, I also want to show you, so this is kind of neat. I want to see if we've got any monuments close. Publish control is what Carlson calls it. And this is one of the commands in the software that is coordinated by Esri. In order to do this, though, I need to make sure that I'm georeferenced. So if you look at my coordinates down here, I am in North Carolina, or my coordinates are real, but I still have to go to drawing setup, and I can set this up with my template or on my startup so that every drawing that I do, every drawing that I start is always in a particular zone and projection set out at a current datum. Didn't have that here, so I had to make sure to turn that on. But now this is under the points menu, so you get this in every program. Point utilities, search, publish, control. So this is looking at, I think, is it NGS? So what you do is just zoom into the area on the map. Okay, so this little project, gotten lost, right down here. All right, it's not giving me, I'm not seeing my apex. There we are. Oh, I was in the wrong place, so we're down here. So we're right in this area. So once I zoom in somewhat close, I'm going to search for control. And it's going to pop up these little icons. So there's a legend. You can kind of see what the quality is. I'm not going to worry so much about the quality just in this demonstration. So if I click on these, it gives me a link. And if I click on that, it's going to open it up on tab and show me the data sheet. And I can switch back to the map. I can pick as many as I want. Click on any of the links. It opens as many as I need. You can close whatever's not good. But when you have the ones open that you feel like are going to work for you, you can hit the OK button. And it gives you the option to just take those points and store them in your coordinate file. So it takes just a second, and kind of have to learn this. It does exactly what it said it was going to do. It put them in your CRD file, but it doesn't import them into your drawing. You have to go look for those. So I'll open this up under Edit Points. And if I look at the very bottom, you can see that these 2 points have been added. They have an alphanumeric number, so I always just kind of take that out. So I've got points 1064 and 1065. And if I go back to my draw locate, I just want to draw a range and see those two. All right, so they just came in, and here's my violet, and here's Pete. So I got those two in. So while I'm talking about the georeferencing and other commands that Esri has worked with Carlson on, let me switch to GIS here. Okay, so now I had trouble. This does go online. You do have to have an internet connection for search, publish, control, and what I'm getting ready to show you. This did not work earlier today. I was getting an error connecting to the database. So there's another way around it, but sometimes this happens. So I'm going to do it's an Esri ArcGIS Services Retrieve map. This is only in Carlson GIS. So So these are the different maps that you can bring in. What I'm going to do is a world imagery, but just kind of take a look at what else is available. NGS Topo is going to be like a quad map. You're not going to have your different quadrangle names and things like that. You just pick an area on your screen. Under specialty, you can get things like a state soil survey. Okay, so you can kind of dig into this and get a lot of cool things. So world imagery, let's just set the resolution, set my layer. I'm going to do VJash. And see if we get it. So all you have to do is put a window around things. You're waiting for this OK button to go active. Oh, it worked. Yay. And then I'm going to move that to the back. Alrighty. So there's my project. Here is our peat control point, and here's Violet right here next to the highway. So I mentioned a workaround. Also, Carlson just gave us this, I think in 2016. You can do place web map service image, and it kind of sort of does the same thing. It gives you a few other options. It will pull in the same maps that the Esri does, and then there's some different ones. What's nice about this, it also gives you the ability to connect to maybe your local government agencies have their own map service. You can possibly pull in from there. Under GIS data, there's a feature service. So like NCDOT, you can pull in some highway feature lines. So this is not, I think this is more, polylines and line work and nodes and things like that, as opposed to just images. So, all right, any questions? All right. Hey, Tim, I've unmuted you. What's your question? Can you hear me? If you don't have a microphone, you may not be able to talk back to me. So you can type in your question and I will look for it. All right, I'll keep an eye out for that. And I'll keep your microphone open here. If you figure out how to get that to work, holler at me. All right, so let's look at a couple other things with this. I'm going to freeze my image, and let's just look in here. I am going to isolate my property corners. And I want to enter this deed description. So I will just tell you that there is going to be a mistake built in, but I'm going to roll with it. One of the cool things about this command, all right, I got Tim's question here, where I find the survey control points. Are you talking about the command that I just did? If so, it's search publish control. Not sure if that's what you're asking about, but okay, that was it. Cool. All right, so I'm going to enter this deed description. You can see I've got my monuments here. I'm going to start at point number 4, and then I've got on a piece of paper here beside me, I've got my calls. So I am going to key this in. I'm going to go back to Carlson Survey. So there are different ways that you can enter line work based on bearings and distances and different angles. But doing it the way I'm getting ready to show you is it saves it as a deed file, so it's very editable, and I like it. This is one of my favorite commands in Carlson. So I've got an option to create points. I'm not going to. I'm going to store this to a deed file and start with point 4. All right, and I am going to start off with a bearing northeast 65 degrees 44 minutes 47 seconds at 3567. So looking at the command line, I'm going to do this. 1 is my bearing. I'm sorry, yeah, 1 is my quadrant. 65 degrees 44 minutes 47 seconds at 35.67 feet. Next is going to be southeast 49 degrees, 30 minutes and 7 seconds, 197.58. Next is going to be southeast 52 degrees, 45 minutes, 14 seconds, 285.33. So far so good. Southwest 6 degrees, 24 minutes and 9 seconds for 297.74. Southwest 70, 40, 56 for 395.09. Southwest 84, 57.16 for 210.12. And then last leg is going to be northeast 16, 28.51 for 724.21. All right. So if you're watching, I think you can kind of see here that we missed if we look at these points. But even if you're in the middle of it and you recognize that you've made a mistake, keep going, because this command, the way that we're doing it, it's much easier to come back after the fact. So I'm going to hit an E here for exit, and it's going to embarrass me at my closure, 1 in 58, so kind of bad. But we've saved it as that deed file, and so if I go back to survey and process the deed file, I can see it in this neat little editor. So in the top I've got a table, and if I click on any leg, yeah, this is stretchable now. If I click on any leg, it actually highlights it. So the issue here is this leg, and the bearing actually should have been a northwest bearing. So I just had the quadrant wrong. It closes it up nicely. I can change my point of beginning here if I need to, but I'll just leave it as it is. Again, this is a demonstration, so I'm not professing the right way to do things. But if I report that deed now, you can see I get a much better closure, a little bit perfect. I can also redraw it with the labels this time. Okay, and then we'll just exit and save it. And this time when it's labeled, you can see it's thrown, and this is used what we call the auto annotate function. So everything is labeled exactly the same with bearing on top of the line, distance below. So it may or may not be, I'm noticing an issue here. So got a dead black area up in here. So let's just save. I may be partially in the middle of a crash. So let's look at annotate, and the auto annotate, I can go in here and you can see that's how I had this set up. So if I were to choose instead to have both my angle and distance label above, right now they're both on the first row, and so they're side by side. If I change the distance to the second row, you can see how it shows it. And then all I have to do is just pick on this, and it's going to label everything. So what's kind of neat is you do this auto annotate, it does everything the same, and then you can go in and just kind of tweak it. So maybe this particular leg you want to label a different way. Well, under angled distance, you've got all these different options and combinations. So maybe we want bearing and distance above the line. When I do this and I click the polyline, it only does that one leg. Okay, same thing here. It's a short little segment, so maybe I want to do annotate with the leader and just pull that out. So I can do things like that. Any questions on this? Okay, so I'm going to turn back on my building. See if I can figure out what layer that's all on. The building, there we go. All right, so let's show you another annotation command on here. Now this is a little bit specialized. It's called survey text, and there are 3 different formats. There's offset dimensions and building dimensions and adjoiner text. Building dimensions lets me do things like this. So I pick this and this, and I've got my default set up so that it just kind of quickly labels these. The other one that's pretty handy is offset dimensions. and this just kind of saves picks and clicks. So when I do offset dimensions, it just put me into an endpoint object snap without me doing it, and then it puts me into a perpendicular object snap. Hit enter to repeat, automatic endpoint, then automatic perpendicular. So just little time-saving tips like that can really help you out. Legal description writer. So everybody asks about this. Under survey, we've got legal description writer. There are tons of options down here in the settings. You can get the verbiage just like you like. I'm going to pick a boundary polyline. Just pick this. Click OK, and I get this little report. So it's not the prettiest, but it's a start. This is a little notepad, so you can actually just copy this out. You can actually have this launch Microsoft Word if you want, and take it straight to a Word document. So a lot of things you can do. You can see that it is reading my property corners as it gets close enough to it. So. All right, so I think I'm ready to get into doing a little bit of surfaces. Any questions on labeling or annotation? May have a little bit more of that coming up. All right, so let me turn on everything. I think I want to erase that image because I'm not going to need it the rest of the time. Yeah, that's kind of goofy here. All right, I also am not going to want that boundary, so it's on that layer. Thought it was on that layer. What layer is it on? It is on that layer. I don't know why it won't freeze. There it went. Okay, I don't know, maybe I just didn't hit it. All right, so before I build a surface with these points, I mentioned earlier one thing that you would want to do is to look at everything in 3D, which we did. The other thing you want to do is make sure you have a good surface boundary so that you don't get any stray triangles. We want to make sure it discards any elevations that shouldn't be part of the surface, like I said, mentioned earlier, property corners, fire hydrants. But then if, and this is a pretty regular shape, but if you have an odd-shaped area, you may create triangles that just don't really truly represent the surface that was topoed. So Carlson's got a command, and I'm going to just show you this just as a kind of a demonstration. It's called shrink wrap entities. So shrink wrap entities, I think the original purpose of it was for surface building and to get that closed polyline around the entities that have good elevations for your surface. So this is going to create a closed polyline around whatever I select, and I kind of want you to notice what it does. On that layer, there's 4 levels of tightness if you want to think about how it's wrapped. I'm going to pick medium, and it's going to create a 2D polyline for me. Now notice when I do this, I put a window around all this, and notice where that shrink wrap polyline showed up. So it's very intuitive. Notice that it grabbed the ground shot, but it knows to ignore that property corner. The reason that it's doing that is if you remember when I went back to field to finish, I drew these with field to finish, and my field code for IPS points, my field code for ECM, and some of these others were set up as non-surface points. When it's a non-surface, it's going to be ignored. Even if I try to pick it to build a surface, it's going to ignore it. Shrink wrap ignores it as well, so that's why it completely ignored it. If I look under triangulation, set up utilities, non-surface points, and do a report, I didn't mean to do that. Let's do it all here. There we go. You can see all the points that are being ignored. Okay. So that's the reason I got the shrink wrap that I did. Now again, this is just for demonstration. I want to see what works. So again, if you've got a weird shape, maybe the low setting on that would work. This is the medium. Maybe the high setting is what you need. But the reason I do this before I build the surface is simply to find out which one of those, well, one, that the boundary that it creates is going to work for me, and two, which of those settings is going to be best. So I'm going to use the medium. Now when I delete this, the reason I can delete it is when I go to build that surface here under Triangulate and Contour, you'll see that shrink wrap is actually built into this command. My only problem with it is that it doesn't show me what it used. I don't see what that medium shrink wrap looked like from here. Once I build the surface, I can have it draw it, but it's already done. I don't get a preview, so I like to do it ahead of time. I'm going to have it write a surface for me, so we'll call this, I'll put today's date, and I'll just call it, this is a surface of points. It ignores 0 elevations here. I'm going to have it draw 1-foot contours with labels that are going to hide under labels, so that just means it's going to use a text mask. And it's going to use 2D and 3D polylines and points. Now I've already seen what's going to happen using my shrink wrap, so I'm safe in putting a window around everything, and you can see where I got those contours. So I'm going to freeze all my points, and I shall also freeze my building and some of these labels. Okay. So you can see my contours, you can see the labels that are with them, and I mentioned this earlier. So this is one of the things Carlson lets me do, is contour utilities. I can move a label along a contour, and I can do this even though the entities that are being used here, if I list that, it's just a piece of text. If I list that contour, it's a polyline. So Carlson is giving you all this dynamic, viewing ability and dynamic reactions, even though it's just using basic CAD entities. Now we've built that surface, we've saved it as a .tin file. So we've got another option for viewing now. Earlier we did viewing the drawing, now we're going to view the surface file. And I'm going to select this. I just noticed a question here, so I'll jump over there in a second. So here's my viewer. So it's the same thing. I can exaggerate if I like. See if I've got any problem points jumping out at me, and I don't see anything. I've got a nicely defined ditch here. Okay, and let me check out this question. Show how to list non-surface points. Okay, did you put that in before I did that, or do you need to see it again? I will show you again just in case. I may have already answered that one. But to see those, now it's in a little different place if you're in survey versus civil, but we're under triangulation setup utilities, non-surface points and entities, and then report non-surface points. And that's what I got. I don't know what's going on here. But all right, so if that was not the answer to your question there, let me know. Hit me with it again in the questions. So I want to do a couple things manually. And we're probably going to go for about another hour here. And I will give a little bit of an apology. Most of my time is spent training, not demoing, so I tend to get a little too deep into some of these commands. And I know that a lot of you don't have Carlson, so you're not necessarily wanting all the deep stuff, but that's kind of how I do it, so I'll probably end up taking too long. But I want to show you manually how to create center lines, how to station them, how to manually create some profiles. when you get to road design in Civil, and I am going to show this today, there is a cool feature called RoadNet that does all this stuff very automatically for you. But if you're in Carlson Survey, you don't have the RoadNet command, and so you have to make all these profiles kind of manually. I think it's pretty cool. Just the manual stuff, I've been using CAD a long time, so I tend to go back to the manual and not have everything quite so automatic and wizardy to me. So I want to show you different ways to get about the same thing. I am going to freeze my contours and just get those out of my way here. You know, I think I'm actually just going to do this. Let's just isolate those and start here. So I'm going to go to 2D polyline, and I'm just going to draw a polyline. That's fine. And just kind of sketch it in. I'm going to do this as a little bit of a center line. Don't like all, okay, it's not all yellow. And let me give it a fillet with a radius of 150 feet. And just pop that in here. So this is polyline, drafted it out. And I'm going to go to centerline and use polyline to centerline file and give it a name. And we'll just call it CL1. Select this guy here. So at the command line, I've got an option. It shows me these little marks telling me which direction it's going. It gives me an option to reverse it. So I can type an R once to reverse it, R again to reverse it back. I can change the beginning station if I want to. I'll just leave it as is. So it's created it here. I've got a command to station a polyline or centerline. So the name of it's important. I didn't have to create a centerline file in order to station it, but since I have created that centerline file, I'm going to use it. So when it says centerline by, I'm going to make sure to click a CL file. Here's my option for a 2D polyline. So a lot of things you can do in here, locating offset points, and I've got some other options for you to do that. But here's my centerline. You can see my stationing. And here we go. All right, very easy, nothing to it. But I want to pull a profile for my surface. I've got a surface under that. So under the surface menu, I'm going to create a profile from a 10 surface. And the 10 file, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Okay. Click OK. And this new profile file to write, I'm going to name it the same. I think I called it CL1, and this is going to be my existing ground. At the command line, it's asking my centerline polyline, but I'm going to use it with a CL file and use that one that I've defined. So we've got that here. All right, so it's found it again. This is it created it. It doesn't give you an option to draw it from here. So if we want to draw it, I'll go here, add, and got all my options. I've got it set up to be a 30 and a 3. And we'll just pop this in here for a minute. So I want to look at this profile file. I'm going to do input edit profile file, select this, and this is, again, one of the cooler commands. This is the manual way to do this. You can input edit profiles from several different Carlson programs. But the key to this is the type of profile. That's what makes it pretty powerful. This is a generic profile. It's just existing ground, so I've got a bunch of stations along that center line, and the elevations where it crosses a 10 line, nothing big. Okay, but let me show you how you can use this really to a big advantage. I'm going to go back to input edit profile file. I'm going to create a new one and I will call it PG road. Right now it's blank because my proposed ground, my road design, doesn't have any stations. Notice that it's, when I create a new one, I don't know why, but it automatically knows I want to create a road type profile. When you change the type of profile, it changes the headings. So notice the generic type, station elevation slope. Road, you still have station elevation slope, but now you have vertical curves and K values. If you do a sewer type, you've got pipe sizes, rim elevations, you've got pipes and crossings, all kinds of things. So I'm going to load in a reference profile because I need to see that existing ground profile in the background. And now when I go in and I want to find out what the elevation is at station 0. So my first station is going to be at station 0. There's a couple ways to do it. I don't know the elevation. I can guess. I can go down here and type in station 0, and it actually tells me the elevation at station 0 for my reference for the existing ground. So I'd want to tie in. Another way that I might do it is put a 0 depth. So if I put a 0 depth, it reads it. Okay. So for my next station, I may want to go to station 50, and I may want to go at a slope of minus 2.08% to try to match the crown of a road I'm coming off of. My next station may go to, let's say, 300. Maybe I do it at a minus 4%. Oh, hello, not minus 4 elevation. It's very forgiving. Minus 4, there we go. And then maybe I want to go to my ending station. So this is something I've asked Carlson for. Hopefully we will get it on the next release. It doesn't actually tell you what the ending station is here, so I did scribble that down a second ago, and it's 428.87. And I'd like to tie that in at the 0, or what am I trying to say? Why is it not giving me that? 428.87. All right, so there's my elevation. I don't know why my 0 depth didn't work. 449.66. There we go. Now I can put in a vertical curve here if I want of maybe 200 feet, something like that. So I've just designed a road. Again, this is manually. Speaking to you surveyors or contractors that are on the call, if you ever get a set of plans where this is already designed, this is how you can just go in and plug in whatever's been designed. You can recreate it very easily. So that's how we would enter a road type profile. Let's kind of take this an extra step, hit enter, go right back to it. This time I want to enter a sewer. So again, maybe I am trying to go from paper plans and I've got some kind of a sewer run. Now what I'd like to see in the background here is going to be that proposed profile, proposed road. So I may not start at station 0 here. I'm going to change this to a sewer type. Maybe it's station 150. And this is a little bit tricky of how it is. Your rim elevation is going to be the elevation of my reference profile at 150. So 453.32. And then I don't know if I can do a depth here or not. Yep. So if I put in the rim elevation and put a depth in, it set that. And I'm just going to do one more, let's say at station 250. Oops, 250. Okay, so notice right now it's showing, this is where I get into it a little bit too deep, but the reference elevation right now, 449.31. But if I change it to road, I'm on a curve at that point. So it's actually 449.68 would be the reference elevation. So that's the one I want. 449.68. And maybe I'd go with a depth here, 4. All right, so it looks like here that it's just above the road, but if we view this as a road profile, it's not. And that's it. So let's save. One other thing, I need a pipe size, so maybe this is going to be a 15-inch pipe. I can put a manhole ID if I want, all kinds of things. All this is manual. Again, Carlson RoadNet Hydrology is going to let you do all this very automatically. I'm going to go one more time. One other one, I'll just enter one. So let's do our, so the new one is going to be a crossing type. My reference is going to be that proposed road again. And let's say this time I'm going to get away from this. So maybe we're here at station 275. And I'm going to go at an elevation of 446. And this is a crossing type. And maybe the pipe size here is 8-inch water. Save it, exit. All right, so what can I do with this? So if I go back now and I draw a profile and I want to add, yeah, I should have done these, should have done multiple, then sewer, then crossing, click OK. So all those different types have different labeling. There's different annotation that you can apply depending on the different types. So sewer, we can do all that here. Okay, if you've got crossings, you can see the different labels. So you've got adjustments you can make across the board. I'm going to redraw all this and just pop that in. And it ain't the prettiest, but you can see how much we can do. So I'm impressed with how much you can do profile-wise just from Carlson Survey. So any questions? All right, very good. Let's move on now. And we're going to get into looking at my time here, how much time I've got. So let's look at LotNet. So I'm going to not spend a whole lot of time in this. All right, so I was in the middle of a lockup. Let's save that. So this is kind of a known issue that I have been working with Carlson Tech Support. We haven't quite narrowed that down yet. But my LotNet, I'm going to open this up. All right, so I've got a closed boundary. Now you can start without any roads drawn. You can have it draw all the roads. You can have it put it all in. In this case, starting a little further down the road, no pun intended, have a closed boundary. I've already got my center lines. I've already got my rights of way drawn in. So with Lot Network, I'm going to use my LotNet toolbar. And let's just look at the settings. So I will create this Lot Network file. And I'm going to have it label my areas. I'm going to have it draw setbacks. I can set all that up. Now I'm going to set my boundary polyline. And because I've already got my right-of-way drawn in, I need to add those polylines in so that it knows within which areas it needs to create my lots. So I'm going to select 1, 2, 3 right-of-way polylines. And now I'm going to go straight to this. So subdivide area. With this, you're going to start off by having it lay out lots in a large area and then see how good it does. Then you can go into smaller areas and tweak them. Take out a lot line here, put a different one in. So we're just going to have it do all the lots in here and just see what it comes up with. So command line tells me to pick inside the area to subdivide. I'm going to use a lot area of 15,000 square feet with 100-foot frontage. I've got setbacks, it's going to create setbacks. So I'm going to have it use the setback for the minimum frontage. So as it goes around this cul-de-sac, it's going to use the setback to make sure I've got the frontage that I need. So there's my frontage setback of 20 feet. I've got some other things. As it lays these out, if I have anything extra left over, it's going to apply those to all lots, and I'm going to have it check my building placement. So I'm going to have it draw, yeah, that was in the previous screen, I think a 30 by 30 building pad, and we're just going to see what we get here. So it recognizes the frontage polyline. I'm going to tell it to start drawing lots from here to go around. If I wanted, I could start it here. And it's doing its calculation. And, all right, so looks like we've got building pads in all but one place. Right here, that's kind of silly. So it's labeled everything. Now, if you don't, sometimes the labeling goes a little bit haywire. So if you go to Lot Network Labels, you can have it just redraw everything. And a lot of times, yep, it fixes it. So it didn't do a bad job. I'm fairly happy with all that. Maybe I could tweak a little bit in here. So now we have these commands where you can remove a lot edge, you can add a lot edge. So if I remove, maybe I'm just going to take away all these. You can see how it combines everything. I've got one big lot now. And maybe I want to just draw a normal everyday polyline from here and go in perpendicular to here. And let's also go from the center of this cul-de-sac, maybe something like that. See if that works. Trim this guy up. And then I'm going to add these two as new lot polylines. So there's nothing more to it than that. Add those two. And so it just kind of redoes everything for me. And it's really that simple. So I've got a big area in here. So maybe this is going to be like an open space type area. And so I've got just 3 polylines, so maybe this is a lake or green area, something like that. But these can also just be used as lot lines. So I'll add these as a lot edge and select these 3. So it looks at those as one lot, and then I can subdivide these individual areas. So back to this one, if I subdivide area inside here, maybe these are premium lots, maybe I want to go bigger, maybe I want to go smaller, maybe I want to see how many I can squeeze in here. And minimum frontage, let's just do 75. And start drawing from this side. All right, so did not get a building in here. And let's just try that again, same thing. All right, that looks a little better. Let's see what happens. I'm not quite sure what happened here. But if I redraw all my labels, it's thinking about it. There we go. All right, so that's not getting a building in there. So I would probably just go in and delete that guy. Still not getting it. Probably delete that guy. There we go. Maybe that's a premium lot. All right, any questions on LotNet? It's a quick and dirty overview. Okay, so we're going to get into now. LotNet is in survey or civil. It's also in construction, I believe. And let's look at some of the civil design tools. So you go down here, take care of this. All right. And let's open up. All right, so I want to show you, before I get into civil, so this is the most powerful menu, I think, in my opinion, in civil. So it's this 3D data. So this is also in Takeoff. It's called the Elevate menu. But if you look here where the real power is, and this is really just for grading. So I'm going to run through a whole bunch of little tools. I call this a sandbox or a toolbox, however you want to classify it. But I'm going to use these 2D to 3D polyline tools. So you can see the different options that you have. If you have 2D zero elevation polylines, And then you have points that define what proposed elevations are, breakpoints. If you have text that defines those break and elevations, if you have text with a leader. So you can use all those things to get 2D to 3D polylines. So I've got an example here. And if I go to Drawing Inspector, you can see this is all 0 elevation. The points are elevated, but everything here, these all have 0 elevation. So I'm going to use different commands to elevate everything. Under 3D data, 2D to 3D by points, at the command line, I'll give it a tolerance, and then it says select polyline to convert. So I'd like to convert this one, and I'm going to break all my rules. You really don't want to elevate the original. You want to create a new one on a different layer that's a 3D, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of fly through these and select everything. So I'm selecting all my points to use to elevate. And you can see now that this has been elevated. So as I move my cursor along, you can see the elevations change. So that is completely elevated. You can see all the different vertices along the arcs and the fillets. So this is another method. Not crazy about this one. This is just by text, and it's a little arbitrary. So things like this, there's not necessarily a good vertex for it to use to elevate. So I'm never quite sure what it's elevating to 98.3 in this case. But we'll go through it. We're going to do all 3 of these at once. Just kind of picture having a Walmart or a Target parking lot that you're trying to grade out. Everything's drawn in 2D with spot elevations, and you can do all of it at one fell swoop. So 2D to 3D polyline by text. So select a sample of the text, sample of the polyline to convert, and then I just have to put a window around all that. It's looking for the layers, it's looking for the type of entities, so text versus MText. And if you check this out, everything's elevated. Again, it's a little questionable on how it does if it doesn't have a vertex nearby. So doing it by points, doing it by text with a leader is going to be my favorite 2 ways. These do not require that you have a vertex. So for instance, if I just copy this up to here and then bring, maybe I just do something like that, and maybe I change the elevation here to something really high, it will create a vertex here at that elevation. So just from those text and leader entities. So by text with leader, sample of the elevation text is here, sample of the leader is here, sample of the polyline to convert is here. I can put a window around my entire project area, and it's only going to grab the important things. So say, okay, I found 2 elevation labels. Which one am I to use? Use the back of curb, and that's what it's done. So you can see it's inserted that vertex, and if I hover over it, it's elevated just like I wanted. Any questions? All right, so a few more up here. We have building pads. Same thing, 0 elevations for all of these, but we have labels. So we can do pad polyline by interior text. It's going to create a new layer for me on these. Select a sample of the text, sample of the building, window everything. Which one do you want to use to elevate? We've got that. And so now this one created a new layer for me very easily. You can see that it's elevated based on the labels. All right, so I think just one more. So we've got a pad that's not elevated here. Should have used it. I'll use that same command and just elevate this. Okay. And then again, for grading, this is one of the cooler things. So points by slope, I'm going to create new points based on a starting XYZ, and then the new points I'll be able to define how the elevations are set based on a slope from the original. So I'm going to do by screen picking a new one, giving it a slope in percent. So I'm going to start just at a nearest point here, and oh, hang on, didn't grab my elevation. So let me freeze, see if that works. All right. It was reading the elevation of the pad underneath. So. Nope, it's still reading a 0 elevation. All right, that building's on the wrong layer. All right, should have just changed the elevation or changed the layer name. 3D points by slope. Try one more time. Snap to nearest here. There we go. Target point. I'm going to go to this endpoint at a -2%. Description, we're just going to say BC for back of curb. Next one is from here. Add a -3, let's say. Oh, did that wrong. All right, got ahead of myself. Let me erase that one. All right, I need to fix that. Needs to be on a different layer. There we go. Now I can turn that back on. Everything should work. All right, did it right the first time. Should have done it right the first time. Snap to nearest from here, and then going to go to here at a -3. All right, so you can see my elevations are different, so it has calculated that. But there's a lot of neat little ways that you can calculate points using that command. If I hit my Enter key and go back in, notice that I've got screen pick, and that's going to be a straight line slope calculation. Or I've got follow polyline, and I'm going to set 2 points here, and I want you to just see the difference, how it's doing it. And these are going to be awesome for grading. So you use this command to set all these different points on this curve, and then you can elevate the curve by points. So take it to 2D to 3D polyline. So I'm going to start from point number 3, and I'm just going to set a point over here, and it's going to calculate that straight line slope at a -3%, and you can see the elevation I came up with. Then I'm going to go back into the command, tell it to set the point at the same location, except it's going to follow the polyline. So it's going to follow the polyline along this length now, and we're going to have quite a bit of a different elevation on it. So target point is going to be here again, slope -3. Pick the polyline to follow here. We'll do BC, and I'll just actually do BC by follow. And then if I pull that out with a leader, you're going to be able to see what it's done. So 3-foot difference. Any questions? Okay, so very powerful. There's some other tools in there. I am going to move on so we can get into RoadNet and a little bit of hydrology. So RoadNet is in Carlson Civil. It's in construction, and it's almost like a wizard, but it's such a powerful feature. It's going to combine creating the centerline files, approved files, earthworks. It can export out to SurfCE data collection, everything that you need. Your viewer, you can drive it in 3D, everything. The only thing that you need to start with, you have to have an existing ground surface. And then what I've got here are 0 elevation 2D polylines for my center lines. So you're going to want these to be geometrically precise. For instance, actually I don't think this should be perpendicular, this should be perpendicular. I do need to make sure they intersect, because it is going to, if they don't truly intersect, if there's just a little bit of a gap, it will not recognize this as an intersection. It won't recognize this as an intersection. So I'm going to turn my drawing inspector off. Let's look at those contours in 3D and just make sure. So we're ignoring zero elevations again. So if I uncheck ignore zeros, you can see my 2D road lines down here. But those contours are elevated, so I can use them to build my surface. And that's the first thing I need to do. So I'll go to Surface, Triangulate and Contour. So I'm going to write a triangulation file. I am going to call this 1201. We'll say this is a RoadNet, EG by contours. Anytime you build a surface from contours, the quality is not the same as if you were doing it from an actual surveyed area with points and break lines. Carlson even gives adjustments down here to interpolate ridges and valleys, minimize flat triangles, interpolate summits and pits. So this just makes some internal adjustments so that the surface is better. It's not perfect. But anytime you build a surface from contours, you want to turn these on. If you're making it from points or points and break lines, turn these off. Contours. I've got contours. I don't need to see new ones. I really just need the back-end surface model. Don't need labels. Contours are 2D polylines. So I'm just going to window this. It's ignoring zeros. So if I go back in now and look at my surface viewer. Oh, hello. It's right at the edge. That's interesting. I don't get that. All right, gremlins. So I've gone through this twice today. Never had that happen. So I'm not sure, but it was just at the edge, so everything in the middle here should be fine. So we shall see. If not, I will see it shortly. All right, road network. When we start a road network, everything, all the important stuff is saved in this RDN file. And I'll call it RoadNet 1. I'm going to start off by checking out my settings. Existing surface, I have to have. I can't get anywhere without that. I'm going to leave the rest of this set to defaults. Output options. When it creates a new surface, I want it to name it RoadNet, and we'll say PG Roads. So this is going to be a proposed ground surface just of my road areas. Contours, it will draw new ones on this layer, and it's not going to label. I'm not too concerned about that right now. A couple things I'll come back in later and do is merge the proposed roads with existing. So I'll make one combined surface that I can use for hydrology. Label profile on centerline. I mean, I can do that. I'm not gonna. I'll come back in later and show how to elevate pads and elevate lots using my road design. And everything else here is good. Click OK. I'm going to save this. Now I'm going to add roads. So I'm going to use this button, add a new road. Actually, let's explain here. So this is going to be my road 1. This comes off of an existing highway out here. It's going to dead end to road 2. This is my road 2. I'm going to have a cul-de-sac here. This is just a stub out onto existing ground into a different subdivision, or one to be built later. Regardless, here it's going to tie into existing ground. This will be my road 3, and it's going to be a lollipop cul-de-sac too. I don't have anything created, so I've just got to screen pick this polyline for road 1. Now I'm going to assign a centerline file to it. So I'll call it 12.1 RoadNet CLRD1. Let's make it a little different. Put an underscore there. Next, this is for a proposed profile that's going to be designed. It names it the same as the centerline. Notice when I gave those the names, it's starting to populate my tree over here. So when I build a road or design a road through RoadNet, I have 3 files that are required. That's centerline, a design profile, which we've created but we've not actually designed. The file's there, it has to be there at this step. So it had us create it. We're going to go in and design it later. And then I need a template. So my template, I'm just going to name template 1 because I'm creative. And then I'm going to design it. So I'm going to start from the center line out and give it a grade. From the center line to the edge of pavement, it's going to be a minus 2.08%. I'm going to go 13.5 feet, and that'll be to the edge of pavement. So I'm going to give that ID, so that is a point on the template, I'm going to give it an ID name of EP. That needs to be unique and simple. So I can see it up here. I'm going to add my curb to this. So I've got 3 different types of curb. So I'm going to use this curb type 1. I'm actually going to have 30-inch curb as a base. So my gutter pan, my width here is going to be 24 inches. So if I change this, notice that the width right now is 12 with a base of 18. If I change this to 24 and click down here, it pushes everything out. So it keeps everything relative. The material for this is going to be concrete. And then the ID, I'll just use BC for back of curb. And you can see the graphic here. Next, I'm going to add, so what this is going to look like is it's going to have a small little 2-foot shoulder section, grass strip, let's say, then a 5-foot sidewalk, then another 2-foot shoulder section, and then cut and fill slopes. So for the grass strip, I'll do another grade at 4.17% positive for 2 feet. And the ID for this, I'm going to do SW1, so that's the inside of my sidewalk or just a sidewalk 1 point. The next one is going to be the top of my sidewalk. So all these are grades. They're just 3 stacked right behind each other. So we'll do 2% max for 5 feet, and this will be my SW2 point. And then my last little grass strip for a shoulder, 4.17% for 2 feet, and then SH for shoulder. Ta-da. All right. So I can click on these, and it's actually showing me which one. I'm going to add my cut slope. It's only going to display on the right side. So maybe we're going to do a 2-to-1 for cut. And on the fill slope, I'm going to do maybe a 3-to-1. Now you can get creative with these. You can force a cut. You can force a ditch on the backside. You can use a berm. So all that can be done here through this cut and fill grades window. And now I need to add thicknesses. So I'm going to have 2 inches of asphalt. I'm going to have 6 inches of stone base underneath that. And then I'm going to have 4 inches of sidewalk, concrete. So I'm going to do all that through the subgrade button. So first I've got 2 inches of asphalt, set that to inches. My material, I'm just going to do ASPH, distance. This is pretty important. I don't want to put in 13.5, which was the actual real value, the distance between the center line and edge of pavement. I want to use that template code. And the reason is I'm going to add a turn lane here in a little bit, and that edge of pavement is going to widen out and going to be wider than 13.5 feet. So if I tie my subgrade to this, when that edge of pavement swings out for the turn lane, this subgrade will go with it. So rather than put an absolute distance, I'm just going to tie it to that point on my curb, on my template ID, EP. If you don't remember it, you can just type it in. If you don't remember it, you can click there for your hint. Okay, so you can see it's drawn in. Now I'm going to have stone that wraps around the curb. So I'm going to add another, and this is the vertical offset. This is to the bottom. So if I've got 2 inches of asphalt and I want 6 inches of stone, then to the bottom of the stone is going to be 8 inches. I want this to go a foot behind my curb, so I'm going to do EP again plus 3.5. So 2.5 feet to the back of curb and then 1 foot behind that. The material is stone, and see that? Oh, not quite what I wanted. Oh yeah, so rather than straight up, let's wrap that around by 1 foot and see if that's more like what I had in mind. Whoops. Okay, close enough. Now I'm going to do my sidewalk. So for the sidewalk, I am going to have a horizontal offset. So where does it start? It's going to start at that sidewalk 1 point, 4 inches, and the outside distance is going to be defined by SW2. This is concrete, just like that. Let's save it and exit. Any questions? Let me scroll up and down through here, make sure I'm not missing any. Sometimes this is good at telling me when there's a question, sometimes not so much. All right, so I've got that in here. Now let's go back in and let's take a peek at that profile viewer. Now, notice as my cursor moves along this, the white is my proposed, the red is the existing. If you look at the top, it's telling me station elevation, slope, and depth. In the drawing, it's actually showing me where I am on it. So if I go in here and I can insert a PVI, maybe I'm going to go with that 50 feet again for minus 2.08 to match the crown of the other road. So that's how I'm going to set that second PVI. And then maybe I'm going to use add PVI. This lets me just screen pick up here in the profile viewer. So maybe I just want to pick a point right about here. Okay. I'm going to make this a little roller coastery. And then let's just add a vertical curve, 200 feet, 200 feet. All right, so it's a little roller coastery. We can edit a PVI. So I can drag this up. I can edit the PVI, just drag this over, do whatever I need to do. Hit save. Once this is in, the other neat thing is there's a show sections. So this is the reason that I skipped over designing the profile until I had designed the template. Because now that I've designed the template, when I show sections, I can also get this view. And notice the text up here. It's a little cluttered. But it tells me the cut and fill. And this is the real time for this road. So I am seeing plan, profile, and section views. Let's see if that's any better or not. But if I go in, look at my total cuts, 11,622 yards. So if I pull this up, something like that, you can see it's reduced it. So this is a real-time quantity. Save it. And before I design road 2, pay attention to how I always like doing this. Pay attention to how I'm leaving the grade of road 1 coming into road 2, because that's going to change automatically on me here in a minute. But right now, with road 1 being the only thing designed, we're coming in as a pretty sharp fill section. And I'm actually going to back this out. I'm going to make sure that PVI is back here a little bit. Save it and exit. And OK to this. All right, so we've only got road 1. Let's add road 2, and you're going to see the magic happen. We're going to add a road. Screen pick a polyline here. Assign a centerline file. Now, road 1 dead ends into this road 2. Now I want you to see how the program handles it. As soon as this center line gets a name, I'm going to hit save. Notice that it shows up that it found that intersection because we had just graphically those two polylines intersected. Notice that it lists centerline of road 2 first. That means that it's the primary road. So its vertical design is going to take precedence over whatever road 1's doing. My new profile is being saved here. Now let's look at that profile. So by default, when you create that new empty profile, the only thing it knows to do is to tie in at the start and the end, add existing ground. Well, when it does that, here's the intersection. Those two vertical yellow lines represents the edge of pavement. So it's showing that road 2 going through that intersection is a fairly significant cut. And if you remember when we designed road 1 going in there, it was a fill. So without making any changes, I'm just going to get out and I want you to see what the profile of road 1 looks like now. The only thing we did was add road 2 that had a different profile. And because road 1 is secondary to road 2, the profile of road 2 takes precedence, so it has manipulated road 1's profile so that it now meets the elevations of road 2. And if I go in here now and just change, so this is the power of a network, by the way. So if I go in here and force, why is it not doing that? If I go in here and force a PVI, there we go. And let's give it a little vertical curve. So we're back to being a fill situation here at this intersection. And all we do is make a change to road 2, and road 1 profile is going to follow right along. So you can see it's now in a fill. Pretty slick. Any questions? All right. Let's see. Switch back to road 2 here. Let's give it a different template. I'm going to edit this template. And we've got a 13.5-foot pavement section. So if I go in and change that to a 12, because this is going to be a smaller road, you can see everything's shifted, or at least followed. And I'm going to do a save as and just call this template 2. And then I'll assign template 2 to this smaller road. Not going to design it yet. All right. Road 3, there's not much hope for road 3. Okay, there's my profile. And if we look at that profile, you can see there's not a lot of hope. It's just going to go straight uphill, which is fine. We'll leave it. I will change the template to the smaller of the two. All right, so we got this saved. I'm going to hit the save button here. What that saves is that RDN file. If I crash, I haven't made any changes to the drawing at all. I can just go right back in and pick up where I left off. But I do want to add cul-de-sacs to the end of road 2 and also the end of road 3. So add a cul-de-sac to road 2. 45-foot radius with a 25-foot fillet going in. I'll add a cul-de-sac to road 3. Same thing. It remembers. I think I'm done. So I'm going to hit save on my RoadNet, and then I'm going to hit this button to process everything. Hopefully it's what I want. Looks good. Okay. So let's see what we've got. So everything's graded. Our intersections have been graded. Our cul-de-sacs have been graded. Everywhere over here that we see intersections, we see cul-de-sacs, we've actually got the ability to just make edits to all of those, the profiles of each of those as well. And everything's dynamic. So if we go in here now and go to road 1 and make a change, for instance, let's just pull this guy back down a little bit, something like that. Save it, exit, OK. Save and process. You're going to see my grading update. So everything's a little bit steeper. If we go into the intersection, so for instance, right here, if I click on this, you can see my target. I can edit the profile going around every corner of every intersection. So this particular intersection only has 2 corners, a front left and a back left. If I edit the profile, it's unwrapping that corner here. So if I want to force a low point, I can do so. I can just pull that down. And maybe I pull that one down too. Save, exit, and just reprocess. Ooh, got something goofy going on here. Let's see what, yeah, see, yeah, it's a low point. It's not a pretty one. Same thing here on this cul-de-sac. All the cul-de-sacs can have their profile designed. So this is the high end. Maybe I want to force a high point along that. So if I just grab this, I've got a PVI. Save it, exit, and let's reprocess. It keeps jumping back to this cul-de-sac. So you can see my grading's changed. All right, so let's see some other things that we can do with this. If I go back to, let's see what I want to do first. Let's just look at a quick report. We've got most of this done. So a quick report here, we can see our total cut and total fill. We can see all of our quantities, material quantities. If you want to really get down and dirty into it, you can see each portion of each road. So this is the main part of road 1. You can see all the end areas, the last part of road 1. It breaks out, if you scroll on down, it will break down each corner of each intersection. It breaks down each cul-de-sac. As much detail or more than you need. If I go, I know what I want to do. Forgot. Let's just save this. Let's turn on a layer. I promised this earlier. And I use erase layers here. There's really something silly going on. All right. So this is going to be a new edge of pavement. I'm going to have a turn lane here. All this is a polyline. I do want to make sure it doesn't have to be anything special. I may want to check it and make sure it's going in the direction it's supposed to be. So it just needs to be going in the same direction that the center line is. And this is going to be added, it's an optional file to my center line. So it's a template point center line. In other words, a point on my template is going to follow that edge of pavement, which I'm going to define as a center line. Each road can only have one template point center line, but they can have multiple offsets. So this is just going to be, I'm trying to remember what I called it, road net. So this is going to be CLRD1. And then I hit the edit button. So I'm going to add a template ID. This is going to follow, my point EP is going to follow this polyline. So I'm going to name it. This is CLRD1, and then this is the right edge of pavement. Decide to use centerline as the right. That's it. So if I have other polylines for other points on my template, I can surely use it. Click OK, Sure. So just let it go ahead and push through, and you can see how it has widened that out. It is holding my profile edits here, so that's why it's still goofy looking. A couple other kind of neat grading things that we can do in here. Let me turn on a couple more layers. So if I have my drawing inspector on, these are 0 elevation polylines for my building pads and 0 elevation lines, polylines for lot lines. And there's no vertices on these. Okay, just a start and an end point. In settings for RoadNet, I can elevate building pads and I can elevate lot lines. So for instance, what I'm going to have it do here on elevate pads, reference template ID. I'm going to say go from the elevation at the shoulder point, find layer, 2D building pads, find any polylines on layer 2D building pads within 100 feet of my shoulder, find the highest elevation. So as it goes along that center line, along that building pad, find the highest elevation, set the slope type to vertical, and add 2 feet. So highest elevation of the shoulder polyline along my building pad, it's going to set my building pad 2 feet above it. Assign a new layer, and I'm going to just do this and put this on layer 3D building pads. It's going to retain the original. Elevate lots. It's a little more complex. We're going to apply grading rules. So I am going to set a grading rules file. All right, so here, this is cut conditions. This is fill. Kind of similar. I'm going to come off of a point on my template, and I'm going to go for, let's just say 20 feet at, I don't know, 5% slope, minimum, maximum, normal. Okay. Then I'm going to go for 60 feet at a vertical change of 0. So that's going to be flat. So it's going to go up for 20 feet at 5%, then flat for 60. And then at the back lot, it's just going to go down and tie into existing ground. I want to apply all these rules that I've set up for cut conditions over to fill. So I'm just going to hit this button, populates this, save that, and exit. So those are my rules. The reference template ID, again, it's going to come from the shoulder when it applies those. Input 2D lot layer. It's going to be 2D lot lines. Let's copy that while I'm here. And it's going to create new 3D lot lines. Click OK. Save my road network, process. Now, something to keep in mind, it's not the magic go button. It is not incorporating these into the surface, but it is elevating them. So you can see the elevations here. You can see the new vertices that it's created. And if I isolate, let's say those building pads, the lot lines, or I don't know if I can grab these or not. I'll erase that. All right, so here's my road break line. This is my shoulder line. So elevation along this building pad, 273.85, and if I slide along, so it's definitely going down. So I think this is my highest point, 270. Oh, it's going up, wasn't it? 273.87. Nope, going up, sorry. So the highest point somewhere. I've got a high point down. All right, well, I kind of lost track. But anyway, that's how it set it. I forgot what my slopes look like. Yeah, okay, so I got a high and a low point in there. So right in here, it's going uphill. All right. So this should be my highest point, 274.45. Yeah, there we go. How about that? All right, so any questions on this? All right, got just a little bit. I'm going to show you just a touch of, yeah, I got to show you one more thing. Let's merge road with existing. So we are going to do this, and we'll say it's merged. And I'm just going to turn this off for the time being. Save it, process. Okay, so everything's merged. If we look at these in 3D, our surface file, we've got just our roads, and it looks like this. And if we look at the merged, yeah, it looks like this. I still got these guys down here, but so this is the surface we're going to use to do just a teeny bit of hydrology. I am not anywhere near Mark Long's caliber, so I will do my best. I'm going to turn off that drawing inspector. I think it may be interfering a bit. All right, so let's go down here. Everything here is sloping this direction. We can confirm that and go back to RoadNet real quick. Centerline 2. All right, so as I move along this, we're kind of backwards. So the low point is at the tie end of the other subdivision. Everything slopes downhill to there, just kind of barely. So as I switch over to hydrology and go into sewer network settings. All right, so a few things. I'm not going to get too playful here. I'm going to design a storm sewer, and I need to give it a name. So today's date. And then the surface file. So in this case, I am going to pick that merged 10 to design it. I am going to design upstream to downstream. So I'm going to put a couple in right here, another one in right here, and down here. Auto connect structures, it will do that. It may not do everything I need it to do. I am going to put in a rainfall ID, so just something very generic, just so it can calculate a little bit of flow. The pipe, I've got my minimum cover, minimum, maximum velocity, so it's going to let me design outside of these parameters, but it's going to flag me if I do. So I'm going to match any different pipe sizes at the crowns. You can see that. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to create a sewer structure by screen picking. So when I screen pick, you can see everywhere my cursor goes, it's actually reporting back the elevation. So I am going to, I'm just going to pick a point right about here. All right, so manhole 1, it names it. My inlet, it is an inlet. It's a combo. It's on grade, so it's not at a low spot. Reference centerline. So when I apply, if I go down here and look at the symbol, I'm going to use inlet number 3 or inlet 3. You can see it's not turned the right way. So if I associate that with a centerline file, which this is centerline road 2, and tell it to rotate. Is that right? Nope. Never can get that right. There we go. That's the way I want it. So that's my manhole 1. I'm going to add another structure right across the street by screen picking. Something like that. Okay, so now I've got to tell it to twist the other direction. There we go. You can see the pipe that it's drawn. So if I switch to the pipe tab, it highlights it. I can change my pipe size, material, whatever I need to there. The arrow is showing me the direction, so this is just kind of a very minimal plan labeling that's going on. Let's go to, probably doing this backward. Let's just add another structure. Yeah, don't pay attention to me on design. Let's see. Let's put one here, even though it's not a great place. All right, but we're going downhill. And we will keep going. Let me put in one more. And let's pop one in here. And then we'll put in one more. I don't have my contours on, but I've got a big low area out here. So out here, this is going to be no inlet. So there is no inlet. I'll just set that to none. And I've got an outfall. So let me just hit save. And let me turn on my contours. There we go. So you can see where I'm going here. All right, so I've got this. I want to add in one more structure. I want to put a catch basin in here. So this is where it gets a little tricky. I'm going to go through it, probably badly. Fight my way through this a little bit sometimes. But if I add another structure, now I've told it that I'm designing upstream to downstream. So now, all of a sudden, if I go here, it's going to confuse it a little bit. All right, what do you want to do? So there is a pipe from 2 to 3, so that's going to be this one. How do you want to handle this? I'm just going to do a new structure separate from that pipe. And so it assumes that I'm going to be flowing downhill back to here, which is not the case. I'm going to save my pipe network. I'm just going to leave that. And let's switch over. Notice I've got some up and down arrows. So if I go up, I'm going upstream from one structure to the next. So I want to go here. Let's look at the pipe. And that's not it. Let's go back here. Let's go downstream to here and look at the pipe. So right there is the pipe that I don't want. So I'm going to remove that pipe. It's no longer there. And I need to add a pipe here. And just because of the way that we're doing this, I'm going to be able to do it downstream. So I actually want, it's not going to be an upstream. Okay. I'm going to edit manhole 3. I think I can do this. All right. So manhole catch basin 3 has one upstream connection. I'm going to pick manhole 6 as another upstream connection. And branch pipe is too low. Let's just raise it at the that's kind of neat. I haven't played with this too much. I'll just leave it like that. I don't know if that's going to do it exactly, but we've got something in here. If I go to drainage, I'm highlighting number 3 now, and I can actually tell it to calculate the drainage area, see if we've captured anything. Hopefully we've captured something. There we go. Oh, hello. That's a little different. Not sure if I believe that. We'll go upstream one structure. Let's calculate that one. Okay, it's probably just my placement of the way that I've got this. Let's just have a little fun with it. Let's move this, pick point, and I'm just going to pull it out just a tad. And let's recalculate. Yeah, it recalculated, maybe not for the better. But anyway, y'all kind of can get the idea. All right, so we've got something here just real quickly because I know I'm pushing on 2 hours here. Let's go to network. We're going to draw sewer network of 3D faces. And so you can see that's what's been drawn in here. So really what this gives me is just a visual check. So now I can view this in my 3D viewer. a little more than I planned. And a lot more than I planned. Let's try this again. Let's go from this direction. There we go. Yeah, I can see that better. All right. Yeah, doesn't look too terribly bad. Not sure everything's flowing downhill the way it should, but a lot of it is. So nothing that jumps out at me too badly there. So if I want to, I can go right back to here and I can draw a data table. Two tables, one for structures, one for pipes. I can set it to do up to down or down to up. I can link everything. And that's something I haven't mentioned for those of you really unfamiliar with this. Pretty much everything we're doing can be set up to automatically update as you make changes to relative files. Or you can tell it not to update where you have to process and kind of manually push it to make those changes. You can set it to prompt to where as a change is made, it asks if you want to update, or have it to automatically do all the updates. And pretty much every step of the way, you're going to be able to tell it how to handle changes. If I go in, this is for my structure. If I change this to pipes, you can kind of see. Okay, and then if we want to see this in a profile, so my upstream structure is going to be 1, downstream is 5. So if I've got that different leg from 3 to 6, I would just change these to do that part. Profile output, I've got an option to take it to a profile file, or to draw, or to do both. So we're just going to do a draw only for now. Got all kinds of different options. Draw grid, remember when it creates this, this is my setting, so I've got full control over how everything is displayed and drawn and annotated, and that's what we're looking at. So that is my fly through of the Carlson desktop products. It's been a while since I'd done a demo. I actually have Scott Griffin doing most of these for me, but he's injured. So I was glad to get back into it, and I hope I did an okay job. Any questions from anybody? Let me scroll through again here. All right, well, not seeing any. I appreciate everybody showing up here and for sticking with me through 2 hours. I will get this recording converted and out to everybody, and I will probably have a link, for better or for worse, on my website so that it is open for viewing. Please feel free to follow up with me if you want to see something, just a custom demo, just a one-on-one demo, maybe with your data files, or if you have any other questions. So appreciate it, and I will talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.